Hello, my name is Osmar David Gonzalez and I'm going to talk about an amazing novel written by Thomas More in 1516. To start, I divided this brief video in three sections in which are contextual, semantic, and linguistic framework. So, let's start. Context and framework. Before starting, I'm going to talk a little of its author. Thomas More was born in London, England in 1478. He was a philosopher, a journalist, and lawyer. He died in 1535 after refusing to acknowledge King Henry VIII as head of the Church of England. After his death, he was canonized saint by the Catholic Church. Utopia was the forerunner of the utopian literary genre, called later utopianism. Thomas More was a humanist. He belonged to the movement, humanism. That literature movement that emerged along Europe in the 16th century. This movement emphasized the value of human being individually and collectively, also the dignity and the worth of the individual. It was a very difficult period for Thomas More because back then humanists were attacking the established educational system of the medieval universities and advocating wide-ranging political and social and educational reforms. The year after Utopia was published, Martin Luther set in motion events that unleashed the Reformation in which Europe split decisively, permanently on religion, and Luther founded Protestantism, a movement in which rejected all Catholic Church altogether. I finished contextual framework, so we're going to move on to semantic framework. Maybe people have heard a lot of the time that word utopia. What does it mean utopia? So Thomas More emphasized to create an idealized society that maybe cannot see in this life, because we can see every disadvantages in society, and it's very sad, and nobody does anything, even me, even you. This novel written by Thomas More is not far our reality, as we would say. He created an island that it was mentioned as a perfect nation called Utopia, founded by Utopus, where the commonwealth really matters. There is no inequality, all people there live in peace and help each other. But the most remarkable is the fact that they are tolerant with religious outlook. They respect one another because they worship the same deity, the same God, that they call us Mithras. Thomas More created new perspective of God and freedom that years was controversial. Utopian, they hated wage, war, and richness. Even the prince, magistrates, priests, they really support the nation and was in charge of protecting. But in times of war, they just used their wealth only to hire troops from suppliants. They were savages and loved bloodshed. They hired them because the most meaningful for them is to look up to all this nation. So this is very difficult period in that time. They use their wealth and gold, silver, not for their own desert, the desert to protect that place, that island, Utopia. So utopian that Thomas More created have been really controversial even nowadays, because, for example, he has been pointed out of communism thought. I'm going to mention an author called Kapsky, that he said that More was interested in a large-scale society, which it is a starting point of modern socialism. It's a system of social labor, a large-scale undertaking require the systematic cooperation of hundreds, even thousands of men, women, and children. And I agree with him because in the pages that you can more mention several times, not private property, everything belongs to everyone. Taking world aspects into account, Thomas More mentioned in his book some city. He creates some names. One of them was Macarians, Amarots, and Emolians. And to the legal representative, he created some names as well. The Pillard, called anciently Sephograms, and Archipelago. And the most important that all the citizens call them fathers. This gives a realistic feature because we may think that that island really exists. Another aspect that is noticed in this book is the language he used, in which he is sarcastic, ironical most of the time. And I could notice that he criticized the government and people lifestyle in Europe. Thomas More liked to say they exceed to us, or to say Europe lifestyle. Now I'm going to take an excerpt from the book that not only this, but there are many other premonition thought through the pages. It said, "Therefore I must say that as I hope for mercy, I can have no other notion of all the other government that I see or know, that there are conspiracy of the rich who, on pretense of managing the public, only pursue the private ends and devise all the ways and arts they can find out. First, they may without danger preserve all they have so ill acquired, and then that they may engage the poor to toil and labor for them as a low rate as possible, low pay, and oppress them as much as they please." I'm going to retake Karl Kapsky when he said that in Moore's time, the household, both in agriculture and industry, was still firmly attached to the business. So one can realize that since then, poor people were forced to work too much for nothing, sorrowfully, nor do they with dignity. I finished the semantic framework with some aspect of the book, some author that is the outlook about what Thomas More thought back then. And I'm going to move with the last stage in the figure speech. I found some interesting figure speech through the pages, and I'm going to mention one of them. "I saw him by accident talking with a stranger who seemed past the flowers of his age. His face was tanned, he has a long beard, and his cloak was hanging carelessly about him, so that by his look and habits I concluded he was a seaman." This is a climax and a syndeton. A climax because he describes some kind of things that you get excited, and he concluded at last that he was a seaman with the description given. And a syndeton because of the lacks of conjunctions. We have another one, and they are every motion of state, either of body or mind, in which nature teaches us to delay a pleasure. This is a personification because it gives some human attributions, some nature. So nature is something that cannot teach us because she is not a person. So it is up to you to take the more relevant aspect of them. And the last one, though it must be confessed that he is both a very learned man and a person who has obtained a great knowledge of the world, I cannot perfectly agree to everything he has related. It is found in page 183. This is hyperbole because it's an exaggeration when he says that the knowledge of the world, one may can know everything, but no overall knowledge. Okay, thank you very much. This is all. I recommend read this book. I really enjoyed this book. Utopia. Why not dream about that? We can create a faithful, equal society. It's up to you. It's in your own inner. So don't miss this book. Read it.